Hi there. Today I want to share with you some information on the top 10 chemicals that are in your world. Recently, I taught a class about this subject and I realized just how little the majority of people know about the toxic chemicals that are everywhere in your home, in your food, in your environment. And they're chemicals that can be having a really, really negative health effect for you. So I'm sharing this with you with the intention of helping you raise your awareness, be aware, know where these things are, and what you can do to remove them from your environment little by little. These are things that have helped me. I had no idea about this years ago, and I've taken steps little by little to clean out my environment, and my health has improved significantly as a result. So there's a lot to share. I'm going to break it up in two videos. I'll share the first 5 with you now, and then in a second video, the next 5. So let's start with number 1. That's a chemical called glyphosate. This is an ingredient in the pesticide known as Roundup, which is produced by Monsanto, but it's also another pesticide, so primarily sprayed on lawns, gardens, and significantly in genetically modified crops, though it's not the only crops that Roundup is used on. But genetically modified crops are actually engineered so they can withstand heavy spraying with Roundup and not kill the plant, kill everything else except for the plant. As a result, those foods are heavily doused and come to us with those pesticides. A very toxic chemical is glyphosate. It's known to be a carcinogen. In fact, in the last few weeks, the World Health Organization published a statement saying that decades of research is showing a correlation between glyphosate and incidence of cancer. In fact, it's linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and leukemia in children. And it's also having an effect on our intestinal flora, because when we eat those produce, those fruits and vegetables that are drenched in glyphosate, that pesticide goes into our digestive tract and then it kills our intestinal flora. The consequence of that is that without healthy intestinal bacteria, we can't break down our food and absorb the nutrients properly. So it's affecting everything. Think about it. If you can't absorb the nutrients, you can't heal, you can't build healthy cells, children can't grow healthy, and it's also going to affect your immune system. So very serious effect. And to compound that, one of the things that researchers are pointing out is that these pesticides are contributing to develop superbugs, bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics. So we could be fostering the development of bacteria that we wouldn't even be able to fight. So we want to avoid these as much as possible, and the more we collectively avoid foods sprayed with glyphosate will be helping to turn the tide and hopefully get rid of glyphosate altogether from the food system. So what you want to do is buy organic produce wherever possible. And if you have a limited budget, then check out the Environmental Working Group. That's EWG.org. They have a list of the dirty dozen produce that you really want to avoid and buy organic. The other thing that you need to do for your children is don't let them play on lawns or gardens that you look manicured and that could be heavily sprayed. You don't know if they've been recently sprayed, and so the exposure would be really high. And finally, you also want to be a really good label reader, because anything that has a genetically modified ingredient is going to be a food that has lots of pesticides in it. So soy, canola, corn are the primarily genetically modified crops in the US. So whenever you buy something with those 3 ingredients, you want to buy organic. Okay, so number 2 is fluoride. Fluoride is a toxic chemical. We've come to think of it as something necessary, something healthy. It gives us healthy teeth, right? But it's added to most municipal water, and obviously we have it in our toothpaste. So what's happening is that we have too much fluoride exposure, and fluoride is also present in other things naturally. So the excess of exposure to fluoride is toxic, and what it ends up causing is actually teeth and bones that are too hard, and because they're too hard, they actually become brittle. They also cause dental fluorosis, and you can see that in the pigmentation, the little spots on teeth that a lot of people have now, and that's from too much fluoride. And it also is known to cause neurotoxicity, has negative effects on your nervous system and also some thyroid issues. It affects the thyroid's uptake of iodine. So, what you want to do is find out whether your municipal water is fluoridated, and the majority of it in the US is fluoridated. And if so, then you want to get a really good quality filter. A reverse osmosis filter will filter out the fluoride. There are other filters that you can look up. You need to do some research because not every filter, and certainly not your basic filter, those won't filter out fluoride. You also want to avoid fluoride toothpaste as much as possible. I haven't used fluoride toothpaste in 8 years and my teeth are incredibly healthy. I'm going to be doing a series on oral health and how you can actually help remineralize your teeth and not need fluoride. But especially for young children, the little toddlers, the children who can't spit out, if they're not quite if they haven't mastered the spitting out of the toothpaste, then use a non-fluoride toothpaste for them. Moving on to number 3, it's PFOA and PFOS. It's a class of chemicals, really long names, so we go by their acronyms, but what they are essentially is Teflon and Scotchgard. These chemicals have been linked to cancer and reduced birth weight. They also interfere with cognitive functions, and they are linked to creating a susceptibility for chronic diseases. So what these chemicals do, as you know, Teflon and Scotchgard, they're essentially coating things and helping them make slippery. So Teflon makes your pans and cookware nonstick, and Scotchgard makes fabrics stain and grease resistant so that, spills slide right off. So what you want to do to minimize your exposure to this is gradually replace all of your cookware with stainless steel, cast iron, enamel coated or ceramic coated pan, which work really well, and avoiding stain resistant materials wherever possible. The next one is lead. Obviously, this is a toxic chemical. Lead is known to have nervous system effects, cause nervous system damage, stunted growth in children, and kidney damage. It was a paint additive prior to 1978. Since then, it's been banned, so it's really only present in the paint in old homes. If you have an old home and you haven't gone through lead paint removal, you want to make sure that paint is nicely sealed, that it's always fresh, and that you mop your floors wherever any paint dust may fall. Obviously, lead paint removal is recommended, and you would need to do that with a certified professional, and you leave your home while that's taking place. The other place where lead is found is in imported toys and some imported candy. In countries where lead hasn't been banned, like China, there is still the presence of lead in some toys, so you really want to be mindful of the toys that you buy for your children. Number 5 is mercury. We know also that mercury is a toxic chemical. It's linked to cancer, to nervous system issues, cognitive issues, and in children, it apparently is also correlated with ADHD. So where is mercury and how is it that we're exposed to it? Primarily, it's coming from coal power plants. It gets released into the air. From the air, it falls into the oceans and with rain, and then contaminating our waters. The fish in the waters are getting contaminated with mercury. And so that's our primary exposure, unless we live very close to a coal power plant. So eating large fish like salmon and tuna and swordfish, these large fish that live in the water for a long time, have an increased exposure. And so what you need to do, as you probably have heard, is avoid eating these large predatory fish on a regular basis. Some people, like pregnant, lactating women and small children, can't have them very often. And so Sadly, these are some of our favorite seafoods, and we can't have them on a regular basis. So there you have it. Those are the top 5 toxic chemicals that are present in your world, and a few steps that you can start taking to eliminate them little by little from your environment. That's on the outside. But you also need to take care of the inside. Inside your body, you need to remove those chemicals, help your body detoxify from them. And in a few weeks, I'll be sharing with you some fun tools that I've put together. So stay tuned, watch the second part of this video and a few other goodies that I'll have for you in the next few days. Take care.